Welcome to Behind the Lens, a ongoing conversation about all things film happening in Eugene, Oregon. My guests today are Anselmo Villanueva and Pam Quan, and we're here to talk about the DisOrient Film Festival. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Tom. It's really our pleasure to be here.
Tell me about the DisOrient Film Festival. Tell me about the title. Why DisOrient?
Correct. It's really a play on words. As you know, the history of our country, we focused on the term Orient quite a bit. And Orient is really a geographical place, Far East, the Orient, and so on. Plus it's things, Oriental rugs. It doesn't refer to people. And so if you take a look at the history of Asian American Pacific Islanders in this country, the term Oriental does not really fit. And so the founder, Jason Mack, and I'll probably talk about him a little bit later, came up with the title DisOrient to really discount that particular terminology. And it's going against the system. We're not part of that system. We have our own voice. We will call ourselves Asian American, Pacific Islanders, Filipino Americans, Chinese Americans, and we're all not one lump sum called Orientals.
Right. Yeah. It's really a countermeasure against the concept of whiteness.
Correct. Correct.
As the default setting in America.
Correct. Correct. And I think the word dis, couple play on words with that. Disrespectful. It's being disrespectful to a group of people or groups of people. So the prefix dis is being used, but also in the younger generations using the word dis for disrespectful. You are dissing me, and so DisOrient has multiple meanings, but also it has a catchy title. People remember the term DisOrient.
And therefore, we're having the DisOrient Film Festival.
Exactly.
Which is strangely about a film festival of some entertaining film projects, both narrative and documentary, which you are in the process of displaying in Eugene at the Bijou.
That's correct. And over the years, we've been able to bring in many independent filmmakers from across this country and a few international filmmakers. We are very well known now in the Asian American independent film movement, and I'll call it a movement. There are some festivals that are a lot older than DisOrient. We've been around for 10 years. There are some, I think one is celebrating its 30th anniversary coming up, but we're there. We have found a place and a niche for us, especially in the Northwest, and we're very vibrant, and a lot of people know about us and are wanting to screen their films with us.
Yes, so the DisOrient Film Festival is an ongoing event. The nature of this interview is that it may be shown prior to the current DisOrient Festival, which would be 2015, and yet we have to have some reference to past years, and therefore people that are watching this program may have missed the 2015 event, but still might be interested in the next event coming up, which would be the 2016.
Right.
And it's an ongoing event. So tell us about the history. You mentioned Jason Mack. Who was Jason Mack?
Jason Mack was born and raised here in Eugene, Chinese-American young man. And he actually went to this very high school, Sheldon High School, where this film studio is located. So it's providential. I don't know. It's all that we're actually sitting here 10 years later after he thought about DisOrient and came up with this dream.
It seems very symmetrical.
Yes, yes, thank you. And so Jason went on to the University of Oregon, majored in, to be honest, I'm not sure what he majored in when he was an undergrad. I began to mentoring him then during those times, and he got his first real job with Lane Community College, actually in human resources. And then he decided to go on to graduate school, and he got accepted full rides at both UCLA and Berkeley. And he called me up, which one should I go to, Anselmo? And I said, Jason, flip a coin. They're both top-notch universities. Ends up going to UCLA, going to major in ethnic studies. And then he got touched by film down there, because UCLA has a great film school. And so he started going to local film festivals, including the Los Angeles Asian American Film Festival. When he came back here a couple years later, he met with some people and said, why can't we have a film festival in Eugene? And that was the birth of DisOrient. At the time, I was in Hawaii living and working, and so he and I were communicating back and forth about that. And so the following year I was here, the second year of DisOrient, and he was still the executive director. And the rest is, like they say, is history.
Right. It has become a volunteer-driven organization. Pam, why don't you tell us about the volunteer program?
Oh my goodness. Well, I started out as a sponsor of DisOrient, and here we are. And I think it goes to show you that a lot of the people who have become involved at the volunteer level have become very enmeshed, very committed, and very passionate about DisOrient. So.
And can you expound a little bit about the relationship between the City of Eugene and the festival? Either one of you.
Yeah, the City of Eugene Human Rights Commission has been very supportive about the work, the social justice focus of the film festival. And we've had many organizations at the educational levels as well as at the community levels who have supported the film festival. So that's been wonderful.
Correct. And Eugene is the home of DisOrient, even though I will tell you there are other cities in Oregon who want DisOrient, all the way from Klamath Falls to Portland to Corvallis. And so we have screened a couple times in Portland, but because, like Pam says, it's completely volunteer driven, we don't have the capacity or the people power or the resources right now to kind of take DisOrient on the road, which for me personally would be a dream. Most of the film festivals run for 7 to 10 days in a larger city. They're all over. So I always had the concept that, well, let's do a year-long festival basically all over Oregon. So we'd have DisOrient here in Eugene for 3 or 4 days, take it to Portland for a couple days. So it would travel around. That's a dream that some of us share. And I talk that way to some other people, and they say, you know, some of you are just crazy. How are we going to make that happen? And I think that's, you know, my involvement, I think that's part of it, is to really make those dreams. And at some point in time, those dreams will land, you know, on solid footing, and we can make those things happen. Okay. And going back to the volunteers, what's really nice about DisOrient, we have all walks of life, all professions, 4 generations from middle school to elders working on DisOrient, all ethnic and cultural groups. It's just really, and it's hard to describe. I would call it a family atmosphere within DisOrient when we have our meetings. And over the years, we have people coming back. They step out for a while. They do come back. We have many students from the U of O as well as LCC, including graduate students. And when Pam talks about Eugene being, or when you mentioned being a home, I think we continue to reach out, form new partnerships with organizations. There is a large base of Asian American Pacific Islander organizations here that I believe the general public doesn't really understand the depth and breadth of those organizations, but we partner tremendously with them. They support us both financially as well as their talent from their organizations and their gifts in terms of helping to make DisOrient grow.
Are you also connected somehow to the Cinema Pacific Festival as well? Because there's some overlap there.
Yes.
That's a great question, actually, because I'm sure
Right.
a lot of people have that question.
Yeah, we're connected in many ways. A couple things, we're independent film festivals. DisOrient was here starting 10 years ago. I believe Cinema Pacific's about 5 years in the making. We support each other, we collaborate, we've done public presentations together, but we are very unique and different. And one of the major differences goes back to that term Oriental. We are very clear that we are about the Asian American experience or the Pacific American experience here in the United States. We're not about other countries' experiences, whereas Cinema Pacific lifts up those other countries. Like this year, they lift up filmmaking in the Philippines, or in previous years, Mexico, so the Pacific Rim countries, whereas we are totally committed to lifting up the experiences of the filmmakers who want to express their stories through film here in the United States.
So you're featuring films by and about Asian Americans.
Correct.
Excellent.
As opposed to Asian films being exhibited in America.
Correct, correct.
Let me just interrupt this part of the conversation to tell the audience that from time to time in the course of this conversation, we will cut in some visuals, some stills, some clips of things that are part of the DisOrient Film Festival, and we'll continue to talk about them.
That
Great.
sounds great.
So you brought some T-shirts with you. Can
Right.
you show
Sure.
show the audience a little bit of how you promote this by?
Sure. Well,
Sure.
one of
Every
the-
year, excuse me, Pam, every year we go through a process of selecting kind of thematic colors and graphics and design, and some people who are on the volunteer committee have more passion about it. Others, like myself, to be honest, I'm okay because they're all really good. But so these are examples. Every year it's a different color combination, and this one that Pam is holding up. Go ahead and talk about it, Pam.
Oh, we started a tradition where we list all the films, shorts and feature lengths, in the festival. So it's a way of archiving our festivals every
Great.
year. So it's been a nice tradition and a popular one. So
Yeah.
Available in various colors and sizes.
yes, that's right.
So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is the way that you gauge your success as a film festival. Do you want to start?
Sure. It's hard to really gauge it. I know that there are numbers that we can look at in terms of donors. I mean, people willingly give as individuals their hard-earned money to DisOrient at all levels. Agencies, community groups, as well as other organizations, they have a limited budget. So from my vantage point, I know this is true with one department I was working with University of Oregon. They get hit up all the time for donations, and they selected DisOrient this year to give to. So that to me means a lot. The other success, I think, is actually the volume of people who turn out.
Yes.
The theater holds 109 seats at the Bijou. We have many sellouts, so that's another way. The other thing is, I think, the amount of volunteers. We probably have utilized hundreds of volunteers over the last 10 years, and they keep coming back. Both because the DisOrient is a year-long process. We have volunteers during that year, but also for the festival itself, we have a whole nother crew of volunteers. And probably lastly are the quotes, and those are, to me, most important compared to the actual numbers. What people say about DisOrient, both the fans, the people who attend, as well as filmmakers, the filmmakers who take their films to other film festivals, many of them say that we are literally the best film festival where they have screened, including the technology. Ed has done a fabulous job at the Bijou with the technology, and I'm thinking of a couple films where filmmakers have said that my film has screened the best in this theater than in any other theater ever. So to me, those are the testimonies. That's what I pay attention to, and I think that's at the heart of DisOrient. It's about relationships. And so I look at what people say, the relationships that they have to DisOrient, not about the money. Yes, the money is important, the attendance is important, but what are people feeling about DisOrient? And that's a hard thing to gauge, but in the work that I do, in my day job, in my previous career, it's about people, it's about relationships, and I think that's the key to DisOrient.
Yeah, I think another measure of success is that the filmmakers are coming back. The volunteers are coming back, and the audience is coming back. So,
Well, let's talk for a few minutes about content. that we've stated that you have both features and documentaries and shorts of both kinds. But the themes that you deal with really refer to both human considerations and larger concepts of social justice. Can you talk about the difference and what the experience is in viewing each kind of picture?
What I say about DisOrient is that every single film that we show is about social justice. Now, some people will say, really, Anselmo? That music video or that other? So I have a conversation, and after the conversation, they get what I'm trying to say about DisOrient and its commitment to social justice. For me, personally, the ones that I like are documentaries about social justice issues that literally rip your heart out. You look at the film, and it brings you to tears, or your heart is just like, right in your throat. But the beauty about social justice, it's not just about presenting the issue, it's about now what are you going to do about it? And it moves you to action. What are you going to do? And so we've had over the years several films like that. And I happen to teach a class at Lane Community College that I have my own little personal library of those documentaries that those students see. And so it's like I'm exposing students to issues that they probably would not ever think about or know about. And so the idea of DisOrient as the home base, so to speak, for those films here in Eugene gets expanded. And that example of what I just said is that
Can you give us an example of a documentary that has had that kind of impact?
I think it was about 4 years ago we screened a film called Sentenced Home. It was based in the Seattle area, and it was about Cambodian refugees that were brought in during the mid-'70s, and it followed about 6 young men who were brought in as toddlers. And the parents were all happy to be in the United States. They had the freedoms, but they were told, or they were not told, that they were refugees in refugee status, that if they wanted to, what they should probably have done was pursue citizenship. So the kids, the toddlers, are still in refugee status. Well, a couple of administrations ago from Washington, D.C. decided there was a loophole in that particular status that if you committed a felony, that you could be deported instantly. I mean, literally instantly. And so this film follows 6 or 7 men who committed felonies, did time in prison, are eking their way out, doing what they're doing in terms of their families. And when the Bush administration found this out for this group of people, they started deporting them. So they show this one, in fact, it's like a helicopter picking these men up, taking them over to Cambodia, dropping them off. And these young men are basically, quote unquote, American.
They don't speak.
Some of them don't speak Cambodian languages. They're just, the only thing is, and it's, I mean, you see this, it's just shocking. And they're married, and so they're showing the film, in the film they're showing the family here with the kids and the dad over here. It's just, and probably never ever will those, legally at least, have those young men come back to the U.S.
So that's one example from a documentary that's previously been shown. But the concept of social justice pervades even your narrative films. Can you give us an example of a narrative film that had a particular slant on social justice?
Well, I would say, like, one year we had a film called Touch. And it was about Vietnamese American nail salon and customers who come through. And just the pure representation of wonderful Asian American Pacific Islander actors among the cast is huge, is a huge social justice coup, if you will, because those actors aren't getting selected in Hollywood all the time. We see such small representation of Asian American casts. And when you see a successful feature narrative, you see the possibilities. And then we also illustrate the demand from the audience standpoint. So.
Okay, what, go on about that, about the demand from the audience standpoint. What do you mean specifically?
Well, that the audience is coming back to see these films, they're buying tickets, they want to see this, and they're sending a message to Hollywood to say, this is what we want to see. We're not getting to see it. And sometimes it's risky, I think, when you have a formula that works to switch gears and try something new. And I think the film festivals have done a wonderful thing to let Hollywood know, hey, this is what we want to see.
Well, of course, Hollywood is about profit, and it's about reusing prior ideas and prior formats to get people. That's why we see so many sequels. This pays, we'll just do it again. And the model that DisOrient and other film festivals seem to be using is the model of the art house, which means that it's a different aesthetic that's being brought to bear. Of course, all films at some level are propaganda. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just that all films have a point of view that indicates the possibility of advocacy. Would you talk about that in terms of DisOrient?
Yeah, what comes to mind right now, and it goes back to the generation piece that Pam and I were talking about earlier. We have a partnership with a program at the Lane Community College campus called Rites of Passage. And these are middle school and high school Asian American kids who spend 4 weeks in the summertime up there learning about self-identity and cultural enhancement and so on. And for several years in a row, actually Jason Mack and a few others did basically a mini film school up there. And their charge was to pitch a film and develop it and so on and so forth. Well, this young woman who is Filipino American, who's lesbian, actually came out in her film.
As a young person.
As a young person. So she was about 11th grade. And so, like the film that Pam's talking about, Touch, that is what I would say professionally done, compared to an independent young woman who lifted up her own story via film, and it screened at DisOrient. I mean, right now as I talk about that, it just gives me the goosebumps, because that's the essence of DisOrient, is a venue for all of the people who have a story to tell, to lift it up. And whether it's a local young woman coming out or an established filmmaker who sees the opportunity. And so we have everything, that continuum from the young high school girl to the established filmmaker, using DisOrient as a place to lift their stories up.
Now, what I would take from that is to look at the difference between Hollywood, slick production, and independent films showing in venues like DisOrient, is that the Hollywood production delivers a product that's about babysitting. It's about amusement. It's not about education or impact. The story of the young woman who came out as an 11th grader is about impact and the authenticity of experience, which is completely different from a Hollywood picture. Would you say so?
Oh, most definitely. And that particular theme within the Asian American experience is really historically, I mean, a heavy, heavy topic. And so literally took guts for this young woman, I believe, to, and I've never really talked with her, just thinking about it, I should really talk with her about the filming of that, you know. I see her all the time, but we've never talked about that. About that experience of using film to do that. And so it's it was really a raw film, so to speak.
Yes.
And it got lots of people's emotions. And I know that she posted it up on YouTube, and there's however many thousands of hits. So the impact of that particular, just that 5-minute film the reach is so far. It's just incredible.
And there were established filmmakers there who commented and reacted to that and said, that was so brave. I don't know if I could have done that, so that was wonderful and I think it gives examples of rich characters that could be developed and stories that could be told in other narratives. You said, how do we bridge documentaries to narratives, and how is that all social justice? I think it gives writers more ideas for stories.
Yeah.
So what you're offering to an audience is an opportunity to have an experience that's different from the Hollywood experience.
Yes.
It's more authentic, it's more timely, it's more personal.
It's very personal.
And Tom, that's how I describe DisOrient. It's really not a film festival. It is an experience. If you go there, you will feel the vibe. You will go there. All of your senses are stimulated, including food. We have continuous food and drink. We have parties. We have after parties. We have receptions. We have the homestays for the filmmakers. It's really a complete package. It's just not this slice of a thing called a film festival. It's really well-rounded. There's something there for everyone, and it's hard to describe that experience unless you actually go. And I'm not here to sell DisOrient. We've already sold it.
I know.
We've already sold it, but unless you're there, it's hard to describe that experience. It's almost like skydiving. I've never jumped out of a plane, but it's different when you have. I've surfed quite a bit. I'll put it that way. And so to describe someone what surfing is like, unless they do it, so it's the same thing with DisOrient. You got to be there to really understand what it's really all about.
We're talking about impact for the audience, and that one of the other issues that I bring up continually is that you don't really see a movie until you've seen it with the audience all around you.
Right.
Because you watch a movie on television and there's a moment that comes up that has some anxiety, most people just go to the refrigerator or go to the bathroom instead of staying with it. But in an audience in a theater, you are supported in order to take yourself through that experience and have the impact.
And I think even more important than that, we have so many experiences now where we are isolated. We can stream things. We don't have to see it with anybody. But when you're in the theater, like you mentioned, you hear conversations, you hear feedback, you hear other perspectives, and those are really important.
Well, I have to end this now, but I want to thank you for coming, and I want to offer the experience of the DisOrient Film Festival to all of our viewers. Thank you very much.
Thank you
so
very much, Tom. Thank you.